What is up, everybody? It's your boys back again with another episode of Franchise Tag Fantasy Football Podcast. It's a two-man show today. We got some stuff to talk about. We're talking about risers and fallers today, guys. Who's rising our boards, who's falling down our draft boards. As always, please be sure to leave a like, rating, comment, and subscribe to the channel, especially if you're new here. Hit the notification bell too, so you know anytime we drop new content. We're about to be into the season that starts next Thursday. Well, I guess technically when this episode comes out, it'll be this upcoming Thursday.
Yeah.
It starts. Yes.
So exciting.
It is very exciting. It is very exciting. Brennan, do you have any news and notes?
Not necessarily. Teams are still going through their cuts, so they're just it's a lot of waiver wire transactions right now. So things are pretty, from what we talked about yesterday, all the cuts, everyone's still going through it. So there's no real big news fantasy wise. Some players are not practicing, some are, but we'll talk about that more next week when it'll be more of a concern for week one.
I agree. So we will talk about that next week. Other than that, dude, you just want to jump into it and piss people off?
Yeah, who doesn't like pissing people off?
I love it. I love poking buttons. All right, so we're going to start with risers. I'm first on the clock. First up is me, and my first riser is Jaylen Warren, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Dude had an electric preseason. I believe in the last preseason game, I have it in my notes here. He was out-snapped by Najee 16-12. But listen to that. 16-12. He's close with Najee when they're both on the field at the same time. I'm not saying that he'll necessarily be like, let's go ahead and slot him in the season right now, this instant for an RB3 or a steady flex play. But I do believe he is probably one of the premier handcuff running backs that you can get towards the end of your draft in case anything ever did happen to Najee.
No, I completely agree with that. I'm on the take that Jaylen Warren is the best running back on the Steelers over Najee. So I know that's a hot take for everybody to hear, but there's just, when you watch Najee play compared to Jaylen Warren play, there's a shift in tempo between those two. And I'm on the bet that Jaylen Warren will be not leading snaps, but it will be close, like a 60-40 count by the end of the year. Najee Harris has been on my do not draft list. Been listening to the camps there. I know they have Matt Canada as their play caller. And he's very stubborn. I know, Tomlin likes to do a bell cow work, but I think Jaylen Warren's going to impede a little bit more than people realize.
I could agree with that too.
Yeah.
All right, man. What you got for us first up?
So my first riser is George Pickens. I think he is showing us that he is elite when it comes to being a wide receiver. I think the world of him. Out of the 3 of the 15 targets is 20%, for Kenny Pickett. He caught all of his passes in the preseason. He had that 130-yard dime. I think him and Deontay can both be wide receiver twos this year. I know JJ Zacharyson has made that quote, but I think both of them are. I think Kenny Pickett's going to be that next big step up, and I think George Pickens is the big feast of that. So going at pick 75, I think he's going to outplay that ADP quite a bit. Like guys that are going around that area for him, if you see, it's like Hollywood Brown, Mike Evans, Mike Williams. I think he can outperform all those guys. So I have no issues taking him there.
I agree. And when you just said those names, I don't want Hollywood Brown because of the quarterback situation that we talked about on last episode. I know Mike Evans is probably going to get 1,000 yards this year, but it's probably going to be like 1,015, just over that threshold with Baker Mayfield. And then Mike Williams, he's explosive and he can do the double-digit touchdowns, but he's got to be on the field to do it. He's just too injury-prone for me. So I definitely, at that spot, I would take the upside of George Pickens, I do believe. Yeah. So, up next for me, you ready for this one? You're going to like this one. Jahan Dotson, wide receiver, the Washington Commanders. With Terry McLaurin and his turf toe, Jahan Dotson obviously gets a slight boost.
Sad.
It is sad. He's being drafted in the 8th round, whereas Terry McLaurin's being drafted in the 5th. So you get a 3-round discount for basically the number 2 in that offense, who I do believe has the talent to be the number 1 in that offense. It just so happens to be that Terry McLaurin's there. It's kind of like a Jamar Chase, T. Higgins thing to me. Like they're both very good and both very viable. He had a really strong preseason. He caught 7 of his 9 targets for 106 yards throughout the preseason with quarterback Sam Howell. So they already have some form of rapport there. He is pretty sure-handed. And last year we saw, I think it was week 3 or 4, he had a back-to-back double touchdown games.
Yeah.
So he can definitely get it done and do it. And I do like taking the gamble in the 8th round on Jahan Dotson to break into a wide receiver 2 role.
Yeah, it's crazy for dynasty purposes. He was like super at the end of like last year's draft where he was going like pick like almost going in the second round. And it's crazy. He's a first round talent going that late. Everyone kind of slept on him because he's small and everything else like that. But he showed he's elite talent. So I think a lot of people are on John Dotson too. And I like him a lot this year. Yep. All right. So for my second one, it is Khalil Herbert. Khalil Herbert has, I think, pretty much solidified that backfield to himself with Deontay Foreman being injured today. But here's some stats for you guys. He averaged 5.3 yards per carry, second best for running backs. He played 70% of the preseason when Fields was on the field. 8 games total or more touches and averages about 15 points. So for him to almost be solidified as getting that 70% threshold and getting him at pick 109 compared to other running backs there, I don't see how you don't just automatically auto grab him right there. So if you were to go, let's see, 109, where other people are going. So like Brian Robinson is going ahead of him, Jamal Williams, Antonio Gibson, AJ Dillon. Like the guy where it cuts off for me is James Cook. I think him and James Cook are in that same area. And James Cook's going to pick 83. And the guys I just mentioned, it's like AJ Dillon's 92, Antonio Gibson's 98, Brian Robinson's 102. So I definitely think Khalil Herbert should be right near where James Cook is.
Yeah, he definitely needs to be, what is that, roughly 2 rounds higher in ADP, a round and a half. But keep giving me that value. People keep skipping over him, doing what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Because I will take it. Yeah. I do agree with you, especially if you're getting 70% of the snaps in the backfield.
Exactly.
Like, come on, man. That's
a flex
giant workload. Exactly. And that was when you think about it, that was David Montgomery in Chicago's backfield. The only reason David Montgomery was viable for fantasy was because he got 75% of the snaps all the time. So, last for me, I'm going to preface this by saying some people say this one's a little gross, but this is definitely a back half of the year play / keeper league more so than others. And this one is Marvin Mims, the wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. With Judy's hamstring injury, if it does hold him out or if he re-aggravates it during the season, Marvin Mims is going to be thrust into that number 2 role alongside Courtland Sutton. And I do believe Marvin Mims has the talent and capability, and we all know what Courtland Sutton is at this point, but to beat out Courtland Sutton for being the number 2 full-time with Jerry Jeudy being the 1 before the end of the season. Mims ran with the first team in Denver during their second preseason game. Like I said, he's definitely a later round flyer, but if you play in a keeper league and it's just like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, you were getting them in double-digit rounds, and now you get to keep them for however long your league's set up that way. If you can get him at 13th, 14th, 15th round, you're good. His average draft position is like 16.04 or something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I agree with that. You're taking, you're looking for the most, touches for somebody that late when you always draft. You're trying to think like you kind of play that vision in your head of like, all right, can this guy be way above his ADP? And I think he definitely can, especially with, I understand Judy's not going on the IR, but like hamstrings linger. Those are things that just always come back and linger. So
they're easy to re-aggravate.
Yeah, I agree with the Marvin mistake. So I got a little bit of a hot one before another smoking hot one for my followers, but I think Zach Charbonnet is being undervalued significantly. And what I mean by this is that I think Kenneth Walker wasn't as good as what people think. So he finished last in success rate among 100 yards plus backs. And he was the worst at gaining positive yards per rush. And he only had a catch, like a share hold of like 7.5% in the backfield. Charbonnet can do it all when he was at UCLA. My perfect example for him was Joe Mixon. He literally was like a great runner, can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think Charbonnet is going to eat into that backfield and be a 50-50 split dead even. And you're going to get him at pick 114 is what it looks like. That's crazy value in my opinion. And you're going to get someone that's going to actually touch the field more often than not. So like, let's see, 114, you got guys like Rashad Penny, who's on the bubble. Again, there's Khalil Herbert, but he's being undervalued. Jamal Williams, guys like Samaje Perine. I think Zach Charbonnet is going to outplay those guys.
I agree. I could agree with that. So I'm going to let you just kick us off. Back-to-back smoking hot takes. This one's super smoking.
All right. All right. What he means by this take is that I am fading Austin Eckler. Now, hear me out. Why am I fading Austin Eckler? It's not only because I get it. He's going at pick 4. There's nothing wrong with him going at pick 4. It's fully expected. But let's just count to some things here. He had a target share of almost 30% last year. That's just stupid. It's just not going to happen again. I don't care what anybody says. That's a lot. So here's the snaps when it was broken down for me. When Allen played but Williams didn't, that fell to 22%. When Williams played but Allen didn't, it fell to 20%. When both wideouts were active, it fell to 12%. Ooh. Now they added Quentin Johnston. I think it eats into more. I do think he's going to be the lead back there. There's no doubt about it. The red zone threat's there. I just don't think he's going to put up what you expect to get out of him. You take him at pick 4.
Okay. When you broke down the target shares, I think that one just nailed home the point for me.
Yeah.
Of like when they're both on the field, it's only 12% target share. That's not what you need coming out of Austin Eckler, who's going to be the second running back off the board this year.
Yeah.
So my first faller, he gained a little bit of traction in the offseason. He is a rookie running back. It is Devon Achane, running back for the Miami Dolphins. He got 0 snaps first team in the second game. So typically they ramp up their first team offenses towards the end of preseason so they can get more live reps in. So that's a little bit of a worry, excuse me. Then he went down with a shoulder injury that is now making his availability for the start of the regular season kind of in jeopardy. So with two veterans, but with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson already being veterans, they already know the offense. They've been in it before. They're probably a lot better at pass pro. He's going to have a little bit of a rocky climb coming off of a shoulder injury to try to get back up the depth chart. Plus, not to mention, Miami has been active this offseason in trying to secure a big name running back.
Yeah.
So
and there's still guys like Kareem Hunt out there. Who knows? Week 1's right around the corner. They could just sign somebody like Leonard Fournette. Anything's possible. Yeah. I'm not really comfortable with that backfield. If I had to pick somebody right now, it's Mostert. I think that's probably the guy I'd probably want a little more. I don't know. It's a tough backfield.
It is, but I mean, I think everyone gets like the rookie hype on him, like, oh, he's going to end up winning out the job. He might, but he could also 100% not being third on the depth chart right now. For me, man, if you have a league that has a deep bench and you want to stash him, or once again, you're in a keeper league, stash him. But if you're in a normal redraft with a 5-person bench, he's not worth the roster spot.
Yeah. So if you're ready for my second faller, it is Travis Etienne. He's actually on a lot of people's hype train. Let me ask you, Aaron, what do you think of Travis Etienne as a player? What do you think of him?
He's a good back.
Just a good back, nothing crazy.
He's a good back, decent pass. Not even a decent pass catcher. He really isn't that good at pass catching.
I'm glad you brought that up. He had a less than 10% target share in the receiving back. So this mindset of him being a receiving back isn't really there. No. What do you think of him in the goal line?
He's not. I'm going to caveat this. He's not very efficient on the goal line. However, there are a bunch of busted plays if you watch the tape back from last year where some of the linemen and tight end Evan Ingram didn't get the proper blocks, or they let free rushers go.
Okay. You can blame offensive linemen. They are the left tackle suspended for the first 4 games, something like that. He was 3 for 13 on the goal line in rushes last year for a touchdown. There's this guy named Tank Bigsby who they drafted, and they have pretty much said he's going to get solidified work. And I think Tank Bigsby is very much going to split into that backfield and work in. I think when you think of Travis Etienne, you think of this guy who can be this pass catcher, but he's not. This guy's in the goal line. I think it's Tank Bigsby. So really here, drafting him on something that is not really him. So guys behind him, Jahmyr Gibbs. I think I'd rather have Jahmyr Gibbs, Joe Mixon, Aaron Jones, and then you can make the argument for Breece Hall and Travis Etienne, but I think Breece Hall is more talented than Travis Etienne. So regardless of the ACL tear,
I would agree on that one, honestly. I do think that starting out at the beginning of the season, they split the goal line work pretty evenly, but then I also agree with you that I think Tank Bigsby ends up winning out that job. This show between Brennen, Ayuk, and Tank Bigsby, we're all in on both of those players.
I'm not as big as Tank as you guys are. I know Ray thinks the world of him. I think he's great. I am a little bit on I'm on the yellow light instead of green light. I think you should definitely look and ponder at him, but I'm not oh yeah, he's going to get it. I do think by the end of the year, though, it's going to be more split than people realize.
Yep.
So you're playing a waiting game with Tank.
You are. My next one shouldn't be shocking with the news that came out, I believe, today or yesterday. I can't remember what day it was. Khalil Shakir, the wide receiver from the Buffalo Bills. I know specifically when last season ended, the beginning of the offseason, every fantasy player, especially when Isaiah McKenzie left Buffalo, they're like, oh, it's Khalil Shakir season. Dalton Kincaid got drafted, but Khalil Shakir is still going to run the slot. He's seemingly Buffalo's number 5 wide receiver. He's playing behind Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Deontay Hardy, and Trent Sherfield. He has, if he doesn't get cut, has so much roster climbing to do that he's not even viable to stash or to draft. Yeah. And it is, as a Khalil Shakir truther and Ray, and I'm kind of on the train, it really hurts to know that, man, he could have been something, but now he's going to be absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I think it's just so hard for Buffalo. I think it's going to be Stephon, obviously. I think he's that, like, it's weird to say, like, but like he's the Travis Kelce of that offense. Like, you just know it's going to Stephon, and that's it. Like, after that, it's you think it's Gabe, but it could be Dalton Kincaid because they have, they took him in the first round. He's going to line up in the slot. That's what he did in college. Again, it's a crapshoot in that backfield. I think it's just Stephon, and that's you should feel really comfortable with as a receiver.
Yeah, your main key pieces from Buffalo for me are Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, James Cook. And then if you want, like I did in our previous mock draft in the 16-teamer, take a shot on Dalton Kincaid, but just know if it doesn't work out, you're streaming tight ends anyway, so hell with it.
Yeah, I completely agree. My last guy, it's Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. He's going as, I think, QB 8 at highest, QB 7 typically. When I have not heard anything great out of the camp, I've actually heard more great things out of Dorian Thompson-Robinson, their backup.
Yep, I have too.
I think Stefanski's probably the worst coach in that division for a head coach and offensive play caller. I understand that we all bought in the hype of like, oh, they're going to throw a lot. So Nick Chubb went up immediately. Amari Cooper went up. But like, we watched Deshaun play last year. This is not the Deshaun from 3 years ago from the Houston Texans. This is older Deshaun. I saw nothing that showed me like, oh yeah, I feel really comfortable taking him as my quarterback. I'd rather have Dak. I'd rather have Tua. I'd even rather take Anthony Richardson because I know that I don't know what the ceiling is for Anthony Richardson. I understand Deshaun Watson's ceiling at one point was like QB3, QB4. I mean, but like Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, I don't see him creeping back up in there. I think it's very hard.
Yeah, this year will definitely be a telltale sign. And like you're saying, I think I would rather watch someone hold their grenade when it blows up in their face rather than me be holding the bomb when it goes off. Yes. You know what I mean? So I'm like you. I think I would rather have maybe not Dak. I kind of put those two kind of in the similar category. Even for where they're being drafted, I don't think I'm going to do that. But I would rather have a Tua or...
What about Kirk Cousins?
That's probably... Those three are probably pretty close to me in a line. Dak, Deshaun,
Aaron Rodgers?
I would take Aaron Rodgers over him.
Okay, Geno Smith?
Yes.
Okay. Daniel Jones?
No.
Okay, Jared Goff?
No.
All right, we found the line then.
Yeah. So and the only reason I would take Aaron Rodgers is because obviously the Jets have done everything that they can possibly do to stack that offense.
Yeah.
So, and we've seen Aaron Rodgers be viable for fantasy. Yeah, he's a little bit older, but he's... Until I see the drop-off in it, it's like Tom Brady. Until I see the drop-off in him, I'm still going to draft him.
Yeah, even in his last year, he was still, you can say viable. It wasn't great, but like, I mean, he's still throwing the ball a ton, so.
Yep, and when you throw every year but 3 single-digit interceptions, that's still good for fantasy. So, my last one's a little spicy. We've talked about him before. We're going to keep talking about him probably up until this big weekend of draft that's going to happen. This is the last weekend for anyone to draft. But my faller, and it's been my faller all offseason, basically my do not draft, is TJ Hawkinson, tight end for the Minnesota Vikings. Listen, I get it. I get that you all like him. I like TJ Hawkinson. I do not like TJ Hawkinson at his ADP. That is my main argument, and that's why he's a faller for me, a don't draft. I want him to go down around the Darren Waller pick, because at this point in time, I'm not taking TJ Hawkinson in the back of the third, beginning of the fourth. I'm taking Darren Waller in the sixth, and I'm taking a better positional player in the third or fourth. I don't think TJ Hawkinson can finish as a tight end one. I don't think he'll finish above Darren Waller this year in points, total fantasy points. I think that one will be closer than what I said about Mark Andrews, obviously, but that one will be a lot closer. But I think like I said, we've talked about this before. I think his ceiling is tight end 6.
Oh, that's 6. I know where your stance is with taking TJ.
I can see 5. I can see 5.
I can see 3. I can see 3. Like, I can see the absolute ceiling. I can see 3. I think Travis Kelce's a 1, but I do think someone like, even if Mark Andrews does get hurt, I do think like if George Kittle's connection with Brock Purdy was legit last year, we can watch that all the way through. Darren Waller looks great, so who knows? But I agree with your take in a sense that like he is going at pick 40. What do I have here? I have 46 is his average ADP, and so he's going around guys like DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, Darren Waller's going to pick 53, Miles Sanders, Drake London. So like it just depends on like how you feel that offense. But like all I've heard is that Jordan Addison is the dude, and
that's the other thing I was going to bring up.
And the second most empty targets from anything was vacated from Adam Thielen when he left. So, in all honesty, I think majority of those targets do go to Jordan Addison in the split between him and KJ Osborne for a little bit. And I think Hawkinson does get his own, but where you're taking him, you are hoping that he basically repeats what he did last year. And I don't know if that's the case because Thielen sucked last year. Let's just be honest. He was not good. He was slow. And I think Jordan Addison is going to get a lot more red zone targets than people realize.
Yeah. And I mean, you brought me into my next point of that he has to repeat. If you look at last year, he had 2 gigantic games, one with Detroit, yes, one with Minnesota. But for the most part, he only cracked 12 points one time other than those other 2 games. He wasn't on a points per game basis, wasn't the best tight end, but the tight end position is just so
it's weak.
Crappy that you can perform mediocrely and everyone thinks that you're the next best tight end. Like,
yeah, I agree with it.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, like I said, I think I could see 5. I could see Kelce, Andrews, Kittle, Waller finishing ahead of him. You might get one sneaky player come in there that no one's even going to know that they're going to be anything good this year, and then it just happens. But
alrighty,
if his ADP was different, I think I would take him. I think if he was going behind Waller, I'd feel more comfortable. You said Waller was at 53. I think if he was, we'll say around later, at 56 to 62. So I think that wraps it up, doesn't it?
Yeah. You have any honorable mentions for your risers and fallers?
Oh man, Jahmyr Gibbs. He's definitely a riser. I'm trying to grab him everywhere that I can now.
Okay. I think for me, another honorable mention, I think I showed you, is Rachaad White. I think Rachaad White is going to be, I think the Bucs are going to be terrible, but I think he's going to get a lot of work in receptions. And I think that's where he'll start to get the mold for anybody who plays in the half point or full point PPR league. So that's why I think I like him a lot. And there's no competition for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm trying to think. I did the whole list earlier. I was going through all these players, and those were the ones that I decided on. But yeah, I can't really think. Romeo Doubs is a riser for me, especially in PPR formats.
Okay.
Once again, he's one of those late round guys that I think he will be the number 2 target and the for sure go-to pass catcher in that offense. Yeah.
My only faller, I guess, that was like it's hard to make an argument because I know it'd be crazy, but like T. Higgins, I think
I can see that.
It's just so hard when you have a player like Jamar Chase in front of you, and your ceiling's capped, so you're drafting him at his ceiling, which is like wide receiver. He's typically ceiling the highest is like wide receiver 10, and floor of like wide receiver 16. But you're only taking him there because you just know he's safe of like a little over 1,000 yards, eight touchdowns, like good amount of receptions. Like I tell everybody this: you play to win. Take someone that you think can win you the league every single pick.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Who all did you say was going around? DJ Moore?
DJ Moore.
Terry McLaurin.
Terry McLaurin was going around DJ Moore. For wide receivers, Drake London, Jerry Jeudy, Christian Watson, Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk.
There it is, Chris Godwin.
Okay.
That would be a faller for me because that's what, middle fourth round?
64. No,
No,
it's
excuse me. That's fifth.
Yeah,
First beginning of the fifth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm running the dice on a run. You know me, a running back that I'm going to need to be my RB2 in the 5th round over Chris Godwin. Baker's okay, but I don't think Baker is going to be able to support 2,000-yard receivers, and I think Mike Evans takes the lead in targets in that offense.
Really?
I
think Chris Godwin leads the team in targets.
I think it's Mike Evans. I think that he's going to be.
I'll do a beer bet with you.
Okay, beer bet.
I'll do for targets for
beer bet. Yep, target lead
down.
I just think that Mike Evans is going to be Baker's safety blanket. Like you saw it when OBJ came to Cleveland, he still threw it to Jarvis as a safety blanket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of Mike Evans' role nowadays. Yeah, he can still go catch the deep ball, but Chris Godwin's the one running most of the deep routes. Mike Evans is running the ends and the slants and the shorter routes. So that's my thought press on it. But we have a beer bet now, guys. That's a good way to end the show. Let's end that one. Brennan, put it in the notes so we don't forget about it. As always, guys, please let us know what you think in the comments. Let us know who you're rising and falling on. And as always, please leave a like, rating, comment, and subscribe to the channel, especially if you're new. Hit the notification bell so you know when we go live. And hey, go check out our TikTok. But until next time, we will see you guys later.